Hello and welcome to Al Jazeera's U.S. Election Weekly. I'm Nick Spicer. This week, the U.S. presidential campaign began in earnest, with both candidates hitting the campaign trail before the November the 4th vote. This week, we talk with three prominent U.S. thinkers about the election: the social activist and historian Howard Zinn, the global politics expert John Mearscheimer, and the anti-tax activist Grover Norquist. We asked them about why this election was crucial and what its outcome will mean for the future of the United States.
Lots of people seem to think that the United States' future, in terms of its military and economic power, looks very bleak, but this is a mistake. The United States is probably going to be more powerful in the middle of this century than it is at the beginning of this century. And the principal reason is demographic. It just passed the 300 million mark, and most demographic projections put it out somewhere between 400 and 500 million in the year 2050. If China continues to grow economically and militarily and tries to dominate Asia the way the United States dominates the Western Hemisphere, you can rest assured that the United States will go to great lengths to contain China and ultimately defeat it, much the way it defeated the Soviet Union. There's no question that in the future the United States will work overtime to make sure that it remains the most powerful state on the face of the earth. The only interesting question is whether or not the United States will pursue smart policies to achieve that goal. What's happened since the end of the Cold War is that the United States has had a very powerful tendency to shoot itself in the foot. As you travel around the world, what you discover is that many people, especially in Europe and the Middle East, believe that if Barack Obama is elected president, there'll be a fundamental shift in American foreign policy, and the United States will behave in more responsible and in smarter ways.
Good to see you. Thank you again.
Than if John McCain is elected, because John McCain is seen by these individuals as basically a continuation of the Bush administration. I think this is a mistaken view of what's likely to happen as a result of the election. I think whether you have John McCain or Barack Obama in the White House matters little for the basic outlines of American foreign policy. The final point I would make is that creating democracy at the end of a rifle barrel is something that's extremely difficult to do. Had the United States been successful in Iraq, they almost certainly would have invaded Syria or Iran. I think after America's experience in Iraq, that the United States will be very reluctant to invade another country anywhere in the world, but certainly in the Arab and Islamic world anytime soon. And that's all for the good, because the United States should have never invaded Iraq to begin with.
Well, America has been heading for some time and is heading right now towards less and less world power, less and less influence. I mean, obviously, since the war in Iraq, the rest of the world has fallen away from the United States. And if the American foreign policy continues in the way it has been, that is aggressive and violent and uncaring about the feelings and thoughts of other people, then the influence of the United States is going to decline more and more. And so I think the American empire will go the way of other empires, and I think it's on its way now. People in the rest of the world hear the voices of the American leaders. They don't hear the voices of people all over this country who do not like the American leaders, who want different policies. People in this country, the poor people especially, and people of color especially, have been as much victims of American power as people in other countries. I mean, ultimately, power rests on the moral legitimacy of a system. And the United States has been losing moral legitimacy. The hope lies in the American people. The hope lies in the American people becoming resentful enough and indignant enough over what has happened to their country, over the loss of dignity in the world, over the starving of human resources in the United States, the starving of education and health, the takeover of the political mechanism by corporate power, and the results this has on the everyday lives of American people, the higher and higher food prices, the more and more insecurity, the sending of their young people to war. I think all of this may very well build up into a new movement of rebellion. Whatever hope there is lies in that large number of Americans who are decent, who don't want to go to war, who don't want to kill other people. Large number of Americans, that's where the hope lies.
I think the most important thing for the United States and the rest of the world is to move towards more free trade, to have more commerce and movement of peoples across borders, so people see each other more and travel more often. People that are insular make mistakes. A lot of Americans have never been to the rest of the world. When Osama bin Laden decided to murder a bunch of Americans, most Americans didn't know anything about the Arab world other than that this murderer Osama bin Laden lived there and said he spoke for it. So there wasn't a lot of information that people had to go that's not a representative of Islam or of the Arab world.
I can hear you. The rest of the world hears you.
The United States didn't have a level of understanding of the rest of the world. And so you had an overreaction, which of course is exactly what Osama bin Laden was counting on. The American people don't mean to have permanent antagonisms anywhere. But again, our leadership makes mistakes, and like any other countries, but leaders change.
And I'm committed to all Americans. I am committed to you.
John McCain, as the Republican presidential candidate, has articulated that we must reduce spending. Bush never did this. Bush's major failing is not Iraq, it's the failure to govern competently in the United States to maintain lower spending. One of the costs of Iraq was the president was distracted, couldn't occupy Iraq and fight for limited government here in the United States. And he chose to be mayor of Baghdad rather than president of the United States for 5 years of his term. And it's been very expensive for the American people.
We hope you enjoyed our look at the U.S. presidential election this week, and don't forget you can get more news and analysis from the campaign trail at www.aljazeera.net/English. Goodbye for now.